Hello everyone and welcome to another video for chat application course. In previous video we have successfully applied this API call to simply get list of friends and list of conversations, and in this video I'm going to start with completing this section, and there are some things which we need to apply and add, which in this case are adding loadings or states for loading, updating them for friends and conversations layout, and then we need to also add list of friends and conversations which we're going to get from our API call to states with Vuex. And eventually I'm going to start with adding this toolbar for friends to simply get list of not approved users, ignored, or just in this case requests, or all items related to user and friends requests, or anything which is already here to this part of friends section. So I'm going to start with first thing which I'm going to add here, which it is basically an update for loading. So we are going to get list of friends and list of conversations. So here, when we're going to get actually list of friends and list of conversation, or just doing this API call, I'm going to set a loading state for these buttons to simply prevent user from clicking on other buttons while we are actually doing these API calls. So in this case we need to use this loading status which we already added in our friends module or conversations module, which this should be here, to simply update a state for showing loading in this button and eventually disabling them to prevent user from clicking on them while we are actually doing another API call. So I'm going to start with adding the first one, this store dispatch, and I need to set main loading status to true for conversations. Set main loading status to true. Let's duplicate and let's change this to friends. Great. Now let's test this, inspect, let's reload. Let me move this to bottom actually. So in view and in Vuex, load a state. I actually forget to add logic to actions and mutations when we are actually updating value for loading a status. So we are in conversations. Here, set main loading status. We need to update. Set conversation loading to status, to value from status, and of course in set main loading status actions we need to commit set main loading status and pass status simply to update our state. Great. Now in friends, set main loading status, we're going to simply update. Let's actually copy this from here, friends loading to a status. Of course we need to commit set main loading status. Let's copy this, and you're going to pass the status. Now let's try again. Conversation, everything is working here. Now let's check our states. Friend loading is true, conversation loading is also true. Great, it's working. Now we need to set them to off, to false actually, when the API call was successfully over or completed. Copy, paste, and let's save. Let's reload. As you can see, we've got false in payload, and also friend loading is updated. Great. Now we need to add friends and conversations to a state. So we have currently set conversation. This is what I need. Update conversation list. So is store dispatch conversations, and we need to pass data from conversations here. Let's remove this. Now in friends, we have this update friend list, which we need to update it, but there are some things which I missed here actually. Let's complete this section. State conversations and get value from conversations. This should be here. Update conversation list, and we need to commit to update conversation list. Let's check if I missed anything. Everything looks great. Now for friends, so we've got update friend list. In this case, I'm going to check my type of request. Here, as you can see, I've got not approved, approved, ignored request, and also need to use some condition to update states based on a request type. Let's actually move this here. Update friend list. So we're going to check type from payload, and in case it's approved, we're going to update approved in our state list, and we're going to also break. Excuse me, and that's it. Now let's duplicate. This should be not approved, and this should be all, and also this one should be request. State list, active list, payload dot data. So as you can see, we're going to update list of friends or list of items from request based on their type. So this should be also updated. We have active list, which is already updated here. We have request, which this should be updated here. All and not approved. All right, looks great. Now we need to also pass commit actually force update friend list, commit, and let's pass payload, 9 app methods. We're going to dispatch actually from store update friend list, and here we're going to pass an object, and in this object I will set this to approved and data from data in friends. And as you can see, the reason I'm setting this to approved actually as a default value, because when we are loading our application we're simply calling for list of approved friends, but when we actually click on these buttons to get a specific item, we're going to use another logic, use another value or dynamic value in this case to update based on the button which we are going to click to get lists of users related to actually friends. Load, so there's actually nothing here. We are actually failing because token has expired. We'll fix this problem in a few minutes. So let's delete everything here and let's reload. So since this is a chat application, I prefer to set expiration for token to false, but I'm going to show you another way to simply refresh your tokens to prevent this to be in actually null or just disabled. But in this case, since this is a base idea for an application or web application, which in this case you can use this as a base for an Android app or iOS or other app platforms, so I prefer to set this to false, since we don't need user to be logged out after hours or days or whatever. So this is a better idea to keep user logged in. Unauthorized. Let me check the users. Looks like I'm in wrong. John Doe. Let's try again. Login. Great, it's working. Let's reload. Everything looks great. Base table, chat conversation doesn't exist. So there was a typo actually in my list of my actually models and databases, so this is why this is actually happening, and I fixed them by actually changing the model name, and this is why this is happening. Now let's try to migrate. Fish. Cannot create conversations members. So So let's check this here. There's another typo here. You should be fine in case you hadn't this typo. Cannot create chat cache file message. So there should be another typo here. Great. Alright, everything looks great now. Let's try to register again, since this should be empty right now. Let's reload, switch to register, copy, paste, paste and paste, and register. Now let's check again. Everything looks great. There is no error here, and in view, update friend list is actually working. Also, update conversation list is also working, but there is nothing here. So let's add another user. Let's copy this one and let's change this to 2. In conversations, let's try to add another here. You don't need group name, this should be private, and let's also apply the time and date. And then in network, I've got list of conversations. Let's check our conversations. As you can see, a new item is here, 9 conversations. We've got our conversation here. Everything looks great for now, so up method, there is nothing else. Now let's start to work on this toolbar for actually list of friends. So let's open our web module, resources, assets, JS components, views, friends, and app friends. Great. So let's start with adding our first component. Let's create a new directory and for now call this components. And here I need a new component for toolbars for friends section, so I'm going to call this app friends bar. Then I'm going to import this here, app friends bar. We're going to get this from components and app friends bar. Alright, so let's add a heading tag here. Let's type something. There is no error. Let's reload. Great. Now let's start with adding a basic structure. Flex and flex. we need app bar, so I'm going to actually create a layout for our app bar. So here, let's create this here, app bar, the slot. So we need to start with adding a name for our slot here. As you can see, I'm going to simply use this bar for friends and conversation, and here I've got a conversation and I've got friends. So I'm going to define a name, or in this case bar name, for my component to simply use this toolbar actually in both sections. Alright, so it's already created. Let's import it. App bar slot, and we need to actually use this like this, and let's add our props. Bar name type is a string, and default value is also an empty string. We're going to use vappbar from Vuetify. I'm going to set this to deep purple, send for dense and dark. Now we need a slot for create button, so let's create this and let's call this create button. As you can see, the create button is already here. We're going to use this to create this, or actually this is actually for just adding buttons here before the title or bar name. So we're going to use for sending requests in friends section, and here is for creating a conversation. So you can change name for this item however you want. The toolbar title, we're going to use bar name here, and of course I'm going to use a spacer, and I'm going to create another button, another slot actually for toggle button. So far we're going to use this slot to create this app bar. We're going to pass or create our buttons to simply create or send requests with this slot, and then we're going to pass a bar name, and eventually we're going to pass these toggle buttons to this slot. Alright, so let's specify bar name here for friends sections. We have this button, so let's add this template with a slot create button. I'm going to use VBTN from Vuetify, margin right 2, margin left 0. We're going to use loading state, which we already successfully included, and of course we're going to call a function or a method here to simply trigger a dialog to send friend request. Let's call this show send request dialog, and let's set this to a small. I'm going to use NDI account plus for icon, and next thing is this toggle button. So I'm going to create another slot. Let's actually create another component, in this case for toggleable buttons. App btn toggle, and here we're going to pass an array of items which we need them to render in this section. So let's start with importing this here, template, slot, toggle button, and import toggle button here, items, we need friends toggle items, which in this case this property is an array of items which they are already here. We're going to pass the items which we need to use in friends or conversation bar here. So in this case we have friends toggle items. We need a subject, which in this case is conversations, and we're going to bind btn loading from friend loading also here. Get conversations, get friends. This should be actually, let's call this get data. There's nothing else. We need to import this item. So let's duplicate this app bar app btn actually toggle, and we are currently here, so this should be app btn toggle. Great. Now we need friends loading, friends toggle items, and of course this get friends to be called anytime get data triggered, which it is a event. So let's start with adding data. Return friends toggle items, and the first one is name approved, and value is also approved. Let's duplicate, and this should be not approved, not approved. This should be ignored. Request and all. Great. Now we have our toggle items list. Needs computed, and we also need to import map state from Vuex. friends, state, friends, list approved, friend loading. This should be friend loading actually. Friend loading, and this should be also disable friend list. So let's click this, and this should be disable friend list. Alright, this should be everything we want here. We need to also add this get friends to list of methods. We're actually missing map state here also. Map state. Now let's create app friends for our methods. So app friends bar methods. Let's import this app friends bar methods. Let's copy and let's simply use this in methods. Let's create these methods. We need type here, and we're going to store dispatch friends set main loading status to true, and we're going to get list of friends, get friends based on their type. So type, then in response we're going to set loading to false, and then we're going to dispatch update friend list, update friend list. We're going to pass our type, and we're going to pass data from response. Cache error for now, there is nothing here. I'm going to keep this very simple. Just we're going to set loading to false. Let's check there is anything else. We have this show request dialog. Let's keep this empty for now. Now we need to work on this applicant toggle. So VTN toggle from Vuetify. We need to specify a property for this component, color white, then and group VTN, and we're going to simply use v4 to array a render of buttons to just show them based on the past items to component, which in this case we had these friends toggle items from here. v4 toggle index in items, the key is index, disabled. We're going to check index of items, then we're going to, in case the index was matched with btn toggle from our property, we're going to set item to disabled. We also need to apply btn loading state for our buttons, and in case we clicked on button, we need to pass value to a functional method to simply call our API to get list of users or friends to user. Toggle name. As you can see, we have already used name and value. Everything is great for now, so next thing is to add recommended or required items in my props. Type is array or object, and the default is an empty array. Don't know why this one is actually going here. So the next item is subject. What am I actually doing wrong here, since this is keep getting me out? Weird. Subject type is a string, and default is also an empty string. Let's save. So the error is from here. There's a typo here. Let's save again. Great. btn loading. Type is boolean, and the default value is false. Let's check what else we need. btn toggle, data return, btn toggle is, we're going to set this to 0. Let's save. There's no error, but I've got this error from here. Tag start is not caused, so this should be a indexing problem, obviously. So we need this btn action also to be included. So let's add these in methods. App btn toggle methods, export default, and here let's import these. From app toggle btn toggle methods, 9 methods. We're going to use this here. Now let's create our function. We need actions, and I'm going to use switch this subject. In cases conversations, we're going to emit get conversations, and we're going to pass our item here, or in this case the type of request which we are going to do. Get conversations, then Greek. We need also add another here for friends. Get friends conversations. Let's check in case we missed something here. Everything looks good. Let's try to see how everything works. Great, this one is working, but I've got nothing here. So apply a slot via bar. I've got my VBTN, I've got my title, but there's nothing here. I guess there's a problem with this import. BTN toggle, BTN toggle, I saw name is fine. The import is also fine. Let's try to type something here to test this out. So the problem is not here. Let's check our slot, up our slot, toggle buttons. This is toggle button. Now let's try again. Great, I've got list of friends. Not approved, ignore request. Let's try to check one of them. Everything is working. And also our events should be a meet. Let's click. Also show request, get friends. So everything looks great with this function, but my guess is the problem is here. And of course here, as you can see, we are trying to look for get conversation and get friends event, but we are actually looking for watching for something else. So if I change this to get friends, and if I also use console log to check my subject, I should get some result from this. So let's reload. I've got conversations, but nothing actually happened from here. So there should be a problem with our cases. So let me check. We have here conversations, so this should be friends. Let's save. Now let's try to reload. As you can see, it's working. Everything looks great. But there is actually no data here. Oh, we actually add a conversation, not a friend record here. So let's add a new one, and let's set this to approved. Go. Now let's try again. All. Now as you can see, I've got an item here. Now let's check our Vuex state. This time, as you can see, I've got active list updated, and I've got all updated. So our item was approved. Let's check again. Active list is still updated. Approved is also updated. Everything looks great. So we have successfully implemented our toolbar, which we can simply use this for conversations, and we have successfully passed our array of items for our buttons. Friends is also working, and there's nothing else for sending requests for now. And we also successfully managed to get list of items based on these buttons in our toolbar. So everything is great for now, and we're done with this video. In next video we're going to add this list or just send friend requests, and then we're going to start to work on conversations. We also need to fix this layout, which it is here actually in a row, and in this case there should be a column here. Alright, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, and that's it. Thanks.